I'm going to go after you. I'm going to make sure you never get on the road again. I'm going to make sure people who get into office support this, and if they don't, they're going to get ousted out of office. These women understand the words of the medieval saint, St. John Chrysostom, who said, "Whomsoever is not angry when there is cause for anger sins." In terms of engaging emotions, I think they engage less than a third. So I'll give them 33 and a third. Again, I might be generous. Daniel Goleman has written extensively about this. EQ, emotional intelligence. I've read his books. I understand him less than I understand Senge, but he's making more than Senge. We've got to find a new career here. The last level of energy they're talking about, not surprising to me, spiritual. This is not about prayer in the workplace, Bible reading during lunchtime. This is an energy level that's concerned about purpose, meaning, value, the desire I have to contribute to something larger than myself. The realization that my happiness is somehow tied into using my God-given talents. Corporate America has no idea how to implement this level of energy. They're just learning the vocabulary now. In terms of effectiveness, I'll give them 0.017924% effective. Why this is an interesting conversation and a legitimate business one is there's growing data out there that says those companies that can engage all 4 levels of energy have competitive advantage in the marketplace, have higher levels of customer satisfaction, have lower levels of defects, have lower numbers of turnover. The work I do centers around these 3 levels of energy. So then that begs the question, what does this look like in a Fortune 500 company if you actually try to do it? It's a good question. So let me share with you some experiences I've had. A few years ago, our chief financial officer was promoted to the presidency. His name is Craig Matthews. I wrote him an email when the announcement came out. Dear Craig, congratulations on being promoted as our corporate president. You understand, now that you're president, you will be totally out of touch with what's really going on in the company and have absolutely no experience of what our employees are going through. If I could help you remedy this in any way, please give me a call. Fondly, Kenny. And I pressed send. 30 minutes later, I got a phone call from the president's secretary saying, Mr. Matthews would like to talk with you. Now. My wife is always chiding me that I fail to have proper respect for legitimate authority. And there's probably some truth to that. Part of my problem is once you're used to reporting directly to God, dealing with a corporate president is not that challenging. So I feared that my lack of respect had caught up with me, so I went upstairs. I get ushered into the president's antechamber. I get welcomed into his office. He says, hey, Kenny, I got your snotgram. Thanks a lot. But actually, that's a concern of mine as well. One of the things I've realized is that the higher I go in the organization, the more out of touch I am with our employees. For us, 2/3 of our employees are union workers. So he said, do you have any suggestions? I said, well, I always have ideas. I said, wouldn't it be interesting to get you off of the executive floor and to go meet informally with maybe a group of 15 to 20 of our union people every week or two? Your role will be to go there and listen. My role will be to go there and help you listen, which could be somewhat precarious. I said to him at the beginning, I think you need to welcome them. I think you need to let them know that what they talk about and say is held in confidence, is not going to be used against them. You're not going to run back to the office and start calling people. And I said I could see actually having a 3-part design. The first part would be a positive conversation. What's working well in the company? You understand, nobody talks about this. We feel if we can identify problems, place blame, point out defects, we've done more than our fair share. But the reality is that many things work well in the company, and there's a need to articulate that and value that. That would be our first conversation. Then we'd take a brief break. We'd come back and we'd have the opposite conversation. What's not working well in the company? Where do we fall down? How do we piss off our customers? What's not going well? And then the third part could be questions and answers. Employees love to ask senior management questions. Anything of value they have to say they cannot talk about, but they like to ask questions anyway. So he said, let's try it. And we started. We went, we invited people, we scheduled meetings every 2 weeks. At the beginning of the meeting, we'd welcome them, we'd go around the room, we'd have people introduce themselves, let's start over here. Where do you work? How long have you been with the company? After that person went, we went to the next person, went around the room. He gave the ground rules. It would stay in confidence. His role was to shut up and listen. Then he said, let's talk about what's working well in the company. So let's start over here. What's your name? Mary, you go first. I instructed him that whatever Mary said, he was to listen to. Not agree with, not give an executive comment to, just be quiet and listen. And after Mary spoke, he was instructed to say, and what else, Mary? And we would keep with Mary until Mary had nothing else to say. Then he would say, thank you. And then we go to the next person. Bob, what do you think's working well? He could take notes, but he could not reply to them. After we went around, we'd take a break, and we'd come back, and we'd have the opposite conversation. Instead of starting over here with Mary, we're going to start over here with Leroy. Leroy, what don't we do well? Where do we fall down? Leroy would say whatever he wanted to say. The president was not allowed to differ with him, was not allowed to say foolish things like, oh, you don't understand. That's because we want to be in line with best practices. Best practices. That's corporate America's version of adolescence behavior, right? As teenagers, we tried to show how different we were by dressing like everybody else. That's what best practices are about. Who do the people in best practice companies go to? I think they go to themselves.